So now we have all the necessary ingredients for building our self-learning recommendation engines. Now, from a data perspective, we have got all the ingredients. Now what we'll do is, now we are going to mimic a customer buying process. Now so say for example, right now we don't have a real system wherein the customers comes in. So let's look at the overall picture, get a big picture of the complete process. So what happens is, so you have an e-commerce site. Let's say you have an e-commerce site. So a customer just logs into the e-commerce site. So the system itself would first kind of generate the context of the customer, that is based on the customer ID. If it's a member, based on the customer ID and the day in which the customer logs in, or in the other month period, etc. So you get the context automatically from this. Right now for us we don't have a system, so we are trying to mimic that using a simulation. So this is what we will do. So we will simulate the context, since we don't have a live system. But when you're trying to build this into a real systems, all these things will get automatically captured when a customer logs in. So let's look at the simulation part. So what are the components we require to create your state ID? That is, one is your segment information, the month information, and which part of the month that information, and the day. So these are the four information which we want, and based on that you create your state ID, right? So what we are doing is we are just sampling from each of those components of segment, month period, and day. We just randomly sampling and then creating a state ID based on the samples. So this is your state ID which you have sampled out, okay? Which will, so we are again, as I said, we are simulating the customer logging in. Okay, so let's implement this, and you will get once you implement this, you will get a state ID. So your state ID which you will see in your screen would be different, because it's a random sampling. So this is my state ID which I've got. Now what we will do is, once state ID is got, we need to initialize these dictionaries. What could happen is, your data has got some amount of state IDs, based on the data which is there. Now the combination of state IDs may or may not be there for the initial values. So if you just give the state ID, if say for example that state ID was not there, data corresponding to state ID was not there, you will get a error, because that state ID is not there. When you give it to a dictionary, you will get an error. So instead of that, we need to initialize those dictionaries. We will need to do a check whether that dictionary or these state IDs exist in the dictionaries. If it exists in the dictionaries, then we'll get the data pertaining to that. But if it does not exist, then we will have to initialize that values for that dictionary. So this is a function which we will use. Why we have put it into a function is because we will be repeating this process every time a state ID is generated. So we'll put that into a function. So the inputs are your dictionary and the state ID which you want to check. So this state ID which we have generated, sampled, is your input, and the dictionary which you actually want to check. So if the state ID is in the dictionary keys, that is as you know, that reward dictionary and your policy dictionaries or the value dictionaries, the keys for those dictionaries were your state IDs. So we are checking whether that state ID is there in your dictionary keys. So if it exists, then we take the inner dictionary, that is we are saying that my collection, that is my call is a short form for my collection, which is an inner dictionary, so we're taking that specific data outside, all those products and its values as a separate dictionary. We are taking it into this my call dictionary. We are taking that. So that's the step. Now the next is about, so if the state ID do not exist, then we'll have to create a dictionary for that. So for the specific dictionary, for that specific state ID, we are creating a inner dictionary, and then again that inner dictionary is we are just initializing this, and and storing these storing the dictionary state ID. Now if it does not exist, we're just creating this inner keys, and this value will be null. We will get a null value because that it doesn't exist, so it will be an empty kind of state here. So if it's a null value, that's what we want at this point of time. We'll see later how we fill this null values, but right now that's what we want. So that's the function. Let's implement this function and then use that to check for that the policy dictionary. So you get 3 different values. Let's implement this. So let's look at the first value, the important value which we want, which is a MyPol dictionary. This is the data which we want. So for the specific state, we get all the products and its value distributions which is there. Similarly, we implement it for the rewards and the count of the dictionaries. Okay, so the same thing, same process which we implement.